Hi, good morning or good afternoon, snow leopards. Here's day 3 of cellular respiration. Your goal today is to find out where cellular respiration happens in the cell and how that energy is released over time. By the end of the period, you should have your doodle sheet answered from N through Q. And actually, this today will probably only take you about 20 to 30 minutes. So this is a shorter lesson. Okay, so where does cellular respiration happen? Here you have an image of the cell, right? And you've got different pieces in the cell. Maybe you recognize some of these things from middle school, this general diagram, right? And then we have these, what we're going to focus today on are these little things. And do you remember what those are? If you don't, it tells you actually the mitochondria. So in our cells, in the mitochondria is where cellular respiration happens. And nearly all cells have mitochondria, but muscle cells have tons of it. And so they can use all of that glucose and oxygen that they're storing. So the more mitochondria you have, the more cellular respiration goes on. So what does this mean exactly? Well, we know that burning gives us a lot of energy. So when we took our carbon fuel, when we took our ethanol plus oxygen, we know that huge amount that had potential energy there with the ethanol, huge amounts of energy, and then that got transformed into matter, carbon dioxide, and water, and then of course energy is coming off. So we had energy from it, and we had matter being rearranged. Okay, so we know that gives us a lot of energy. What form does the energy take in burning? So what evidence do we have for energy? Well, hopefully you said we can see the light, we can feel the heat, we can see movement. Well, burning food gives us a lot of energy, and you know that intuitively. So here we have our glucose, that combined with oxygen. It gets rearranged to become carbon dioxide and water, but what comes off of that is a lot of energy. Shockingly, the calories from glucose in a bowl of cereal is about the same amount of energy as we saw in the burning ethanol demonstration. And actually, it's way more, because this is assuming that this is a flame of burning 40 milliliters of ethanol is one whole grain cereal. That's also key, whole grain there. But in actuality, I never burned 40 milliliters at a time. I did about 4 to 5 milliliters. So take the flame that you saw, add in 9 to 10 times more ethanol, and that's the amount of energy that comes off of that flame is equal to a bowl of cereal. Well, if we think that carbs give us this much energy, what's the problem if this is happening on the cellular level? This is happening inside ourselves. What might a problem be with that? I want you to write down any problems you can think of in doodle box N. So think about the amount of energy that gives us. What problem could that be inside our cells? Write down anything you can think of in doodle box N. Put me on pause now. So here's our answer to our question. Let's see if you got it. So what is the problem with having a reaction like this happen in a cell? Well, in combustion reactions, the fuel molecules are rearranged all at once. One big step. Poof. So all of that energy is released at once. So here we have our wood, coal, wax plus oxygen. Big release of energy, and it's broken down. In doodle box O, suggest a way that cells might solve this problem. So we don't want it released all at once. And so I want you to just sketch an energy diagram that shows how glucose could be broken down in a way that is safe for the cell. It could be overpowering, right, for the cell to have all of that glucose released at the same time. So go ahead and put me on pause now and draw out your diagram. Okay, here is an example of it. Break it up. Whew. So instead of having one big reaction like on the ethanol, because that model isn't the perfect model for how we burn food, we're going to take it and make it in little amounts, boom, 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 down the line. So we have a series of steps to release it over time. Okay? So all of these small arrangements, each releasing a small amount of energy. Okay? So just, sorry, I thought there was one more piece. So just focus on that. So here you've got your glucose and your oxygen being released over time, and eventually carbon dioxide and water get released. But wait, the energy from burning fuel is released as heat and light. So there's another problem. Not only is so we know it doesn't happen all at once, it gets over time, but also the type of energy is heat and light. So do cells use heat to do work of life? What do you think? Well, some helps heat our bodies, but most is lost to the environment. And cells can't use heat to do work. So how can a cell move energy from the mitochondria to where it's needed? These problems are solved by a little molecule called ATP. So think of it as the transport molecule for energy in the cell. ATP transports usable energy inside the cell. It's a molecule, but it starts off as something else. It starts off as ADP. When it comes into contact with an energy releasing reaction, it gets energized, and that transforms it into ATP. So if you want to think about this in terms of taxi service, we've got the ADP here, and it's not really on duty, but it's around. But when it comes into contact with the energy releasing reaction, boom, it goes on duty and it starts bringing energy to the different parts of the cell that is needed. So the ATP captures that energy released when the glucose is rearranged. This is the only kind of energy a cell can use directly to do work. ATP moves the energy from mitochondria to wherever it may be needed in the cell. So you can imagine this is a vital part of the cell. And also I want you to think about how this was discovered. It was not one person, one lab. It was hundreds, thousands of people in laboratories trying to figure out all of this stuff. So this was really a tremendous amount of work over decades of figuring this out. So here we go. ATP captures the energy from the burning of glucose. Okay. Each small rearrangement releases a small amount of usable energy to an ADP molecule, and that transforms it into an energy-carrying ATP. Okay? And so in the rearrangement of glucose and oxygen to carbon dioxide and water, we produce 36 ATP this way. So the 36 ATP molecules are then able to transport energy about the cell. So here you've got 2, here we've got 34, and we have 36 in total. ATP transports usable energy inside the cell. So ADP is continually being made into ATP in our mitochondria. And ATP then delivers energy to other parts of the cells for them to do their work or do whatever function they need to do. So here again with our model, and remember, this is an idea to help you understand. There are holes in it too, so just keep that in mind, that it's not the most perfect model, but it's actually pretty good. So here we've got these kind of off-duty cabs, right? ADP, and then you've got your ATPs moving around. You can even actually, if you're trying to remember it, what goes first, ADP, the D is before the letter T in the alphabet. So first it's ADP, and then it gets made into ATP. Okay, so then we're going to look at what happens to it. When the energy in ATP is used to do work, it returns back to ADP. So you can see this cycle going on. In this way, more ADP is ready to pick up energy and become ATP once again. There's our cycle. When the energy in ATP is used to do work, it returns to being ADP. So we know that. So how do these two processes, indicated by the arrows, relate to our energy diagram and our understanding of chemical reactions? So think back to your energy diagram and where you drew in how energy gets released and the potential energy and those factors. How do you think this relates to this? If you were to diagram this out, what would it look like? So think about that for a moment. Is this what you were thinking of? So you've got your reactants, right? And energy is added or absorbed during the reaction, and that becomes our products. And here we've got our reactants, and energy is released during the reaction, and that becomes our products. So you have your things, right? And then when you add energy, now we've got our products here, and then you have your reactants, energy gets released, here's our product. So you can add energy, which we also talked about a little bit at the end of chemical reactions. So sum it up. What are the key ideas about cellular respiration that we need to add to our model for energy from food? Is there anything we need to add to our model for matter from food? So now what do we know that we can add in on energy? So hopefully you're thinking ADP and ATP and how it gets released. And is there anything we can add about the model for matter? Go ahead and put your thoughts in on Doodle Box P. Feel free to talk to some folks back there, at least one other person, about what you can put in there. And that we're not going to pair share, but please talk to your group. All right, and then record what you know. So let me have this list from your table: matter from food, energy from food. Give me some model statements. What do we know now? All that we've learned about food in the last few weeks, all that we've learned from energy in the energy from food in the last few weeks. So go ahead and create that on a separate piece of paper, and you can put all of your names on it. If there's only 2 of you, then just put your 2 names. If there's 5 of you, put all 5 of your names. Okay, now record everything that you're in agreement with in Doodlebox Q. And you can also go outside and talk with other groups and add it to if you'd like. That is it. I told you it was a short lesson, so hopefully you're caught up to date, and we'll continue with some labs tomorrow.